Good evening, everyone, and welcome to reading number 386 of the It's About Time Writers Reading Series. I'm very happy to welcome tonight the series founder, Esther Helfgott. The series first started in January 1990, so it seemed very appropriate to have her kick off 2022 for us. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Carolyn Wright, Ruth Schemmel, and Esther Helfgott. We also have the most participatory open mic that we've had since we went online. So thank you so much, those who've let me know in chat that you want to be part of this. I'm very happy and feel increasingly encouraged about 2022. So our first reader tonight is Carolyn Wright, and she is going to be reading from her new book, Masquerade. It is a memoir in poetry published by Lost Force Press. Her previous book is This Dream the World, New and Selected Poems, whose title poem won a Pushcart Prize and also appeared in the Best American Poetry 2009. Her groundbreaking anthology, Raising Lily Ledbetter, Women Poets Occupy the Workspace, received 10 Pushcart Prize nominations. She has also received NEA and 4Culture grants and the Fulbright Scholar Award in early 2020, which will take her back to Bahia after the COVID-19 pandemic subsides in Brazil. Welcome, Carolyn. I'll have you.
Well,
there you go.
Thank you, everybody, and good evening. Thanks so much for having me, Peggy, and I'm very happy to be here with Ruth and Esther and reading with all of you in the Zoom room, and I'm looking forward to hearing your work as well. Well, as Peggy said, I'm going to read from this new book called Masquerade. It's a memoir in poetry, and I'm going to read a couple of the shorter pieces from it, and let's see where it takes us. The first one, I mean, it's the story in verse, in poetic form, of an interracial love affair. And this was something that occurred quite a long time ago. But I'm going to take you through a few of the parts of it. The first poem I'm going to read is a round, which is a form you'll hear some repetition with variation, and it's called At First Sight. Notice that there's one word that is often part of that phrase that is not there. Round, at first sight. Through the window's louvered blinds, you glide in profile across the room, angled pitch of your hips, almost a dancer's, backlit by a single kitchen bulb. That's all. Through twilight's translucent blinds, you glide through backlight that falls foursquare on the outside veranda where I hover, waiting for my door to open, glancing through the next door window where you glide in profile, the room falling in foursquare light onto the veranda at my feet, next to the studio's caretaker turning the key in my door, angle of your dancer's silhouette flooding my breastbone with sudden fear. Or is it the single kitchen bulb that silhouettes you in profile in your studio, a reversed mirror image of my own next door, where the caretaker turns the key so that I can step inside my mirror image in reverse? Next door studio, where I will live a year beside you. Fear's light falls on all fours at my feet, your profile in silhouette, the blinds half open. Have you noticed my moment's gaze that goes on a year until I step into my studio and close the door? Your image profiling mine through louvered blinds. Well, I'm going to go to the next poem in the sequence, which is called Blame It on My Youth. A lot of these poems have jazz influence and jazz references in them, and that's a song you may recall, sort of one of those ballads, torch song ballads. And it starts at an artist's colony, as we could say. It's a residency program on the other coast. And you may recognize the setting if I read enough from here. So this is it. And the title is also the first line. Blame it on my youth. I hum at the Arts Center's opening fete, a tune I've heard for the first time on public radio's after-hours jazz out of Boston. I'm happy by myself this evening, sipping a gin and tonic without the gin, newly arrived as everyone. Early October's red letter maple leaves scraping like paper mache scraps against the windows. Where are you as I chat with sculptors and novelists, painters and poets, all of us reading each other's name tags? Ah, yes, that center of stillness near a bookcase. You sit on a braided throw rug on the gallery floor in faded blue jeans and pressed denim shirt, one arm folding your crossed knees to your chest. Even then, you lean into the next moment, gazing into your wine glass with a sly smile, lip syncing whose words to yourself. Have I forgotten that first sight's blow dart has already struck? If anyone asked then, the question would puzzle me. Safe? Of course I'm safe. You glance up as I pass. Your attention ripples, then veers away. I'm just another woman in the room without a name yet, as conversation swirls and Elvis Costello groans on the stereo. The angels want to wear my red shoes. We haven't yet been introduced. What if the cloud of circumstance had hovered a moment, then eased off? If the future weren't already stitched to the past? This evening, we are all just starting out, all of us too young for blame. Okay, let's see. You know, I might kind of stay with this because it's sort of fun to read the opening. This place, it was on Cape Cod. As we have here in the Salish Sea, there are whale watch boats that go out. And they go out into October, you know, and then there's a winter break and they resume sometime in the spring. So I think at that point, I don't think I had ever been on a whale watch. So I decided to sign up, and you know, however I had to do that, I went and signed up for a whale watch and got a couple of the other new fellows to go with me. So I decided to invite this person. But you know, things never come out quite straight. So instead of going on a whale watch, we went to be watched by whales. And that actually happened. Sun floods the dunes this morning with Cape Cod's Indian yellow wash. And I try to scat whistle Herbie Hancock's dolphin dance between my teeth as I bound up the swaying walk the plank steps and give my syncopated tap, tap, tapping on your door. Want to come be watched by whales? I ask the wooden panel swinging inward and the rectangle of shadow from which you emerge, heavy-lidded, averting your glance as the dunes' lemon reflections strike the planes of your face. And I repeat my invitation, squint grinning to deflect the threat. Above us, wavering V's of geese yelp in unison, like a big band's reed section. You gaze down at me as if I were the busybody from Porlock nosing in on your private Xanadu. Say what? You mutter, your voice dusty with reluctance. Have you been at work? Asleep? Is a woman with you? Your arm across the door space blocks my view inside. I shiver in late October's sudden chill. Keep it light, I chide myself as I stutter to explain. The season's last whale watch? Some painters, a novelist, and I are getting tickets. Would you like to join? I finish with some quip that Ahab never had it so easy, you know, with Moby Dick. Then flush as the look on your face makes me follow the thread of that comment to its race-baited source. No, no, you murmur, thanks, then shut the door. The whole exchange, 2 minutes. To your 5 words, I've spilled 5 score, shivering in the quickened breeze, still talking as your door closes. How foolish do I feel? I shrug. I don't believe in all or nothing at all. I've done what I could to be a pal, drawing the line at friendship. I clatter down the rocking steps, still in my right mind, not yet anybody's consolation prize. From inside your shuttered studio, you never see the pod of fin whales frolicking off the bow, breaching and spouting in the slate gray scud as the captain cuts the engines, and in the sudden lull, a young whale breaks from the ponderous royal to lift straight up, nose to house-high tail flukes against the sky. He arcs over the deck, hanging a moment like a dancer in sheer wind as the railing's length of watchers gasps, and he slides back like a pewter blade, shelving into the wave storm. I grip the rail in a speechless breeze. I never tell you. No man has ever thrust his summer into me like that. Okay, I'm going to read one more because I don't want to take too much time here. The next poem is in 2 parts. I'm staying here in this northeast coast here. Here we are again in the dunes. And it's a poem, it's a pair of triolays, which you may know is a form that has 8 lines, of which 1 line gets repeated 3 times and another line gets repeated once. So there's, 3 lines are the same and then 2 other lines are pretty much the same. And it's called Triolays on a Dune Shack. The dune shacks were little shacks that painters used to use on Cape Cod. And they go out there to paint and, a place with no distraction. And so there are still dune shacks out there. And the poem has an epigraph from a writer named Lester Walker, The Tiny Book of Tiny Houses. And the epigraph is, snuggled in between 2 small glassy dunes facing the ocean. Triolays on a dune shack. 1. We make love only once in the dune shack. Our reflections stroke each other in the mirrors, the pot-bellied stove by the bunk bed glowing black. We make love only once in the dune shack. Atlantic winds rattle the French doors. Sand drifts against us on the bolsters. We make love only once in the dune shack. Our reflections stroke each other in the mirrors. And then here's Here's the mirror triolay. Number 2. Let's say we never make love in the dune shack. We kissed and walked away, dunes glassy around us. We gazed out to sea, we never looked back. We tell ourselves we never made love in the dune shack. We stopped short where the weathered driftwood found us and turned away in the lee of the dune grass. We never made love, we say, in the dune shack. We kissed and walked away, the dunes glassy around us. So thank you very much. And, to be continued at another reading. Thanks so much.
People are not going to forget that whale ending. I'll tell you that. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, Sylvia, if you will unmute yourself, then I will have you do your open mic.
All right. I am unmuted. All right.
Voila.
As many of you know, I like to write about various characters. I mean, there's the deaf woman, there's Letitia, but there's a new character I've been writing about, and he's called Mr. Zeitgeist. And this is a prose poem called Night Visitor. In the night, my bedroom door eases open. Mr. Zeitgeist sidles into the room, slips under the covers, into my head. He stays until dawn, takes control of my dreams, dangles a noose, screams slogans in my face, sprays virus-laden spittle. I don't like how he makes me feel. It's fatiguing. He suggests remedies for my symptoms. He shills for pharmaceutical companies, wears a sandwich board advertising his wares. I am wary. Whatever he's pushing is undoubtedly harmful. Side effects may include headaches, nausea, blurred vision, vertigo, and unwanted pregnancy. He suggests consult your doctor, but where are the doctors? Medical schools shriveled into demagoguery. Sometimes I fear I might be carrying one of Mr. Zeitgeist's conceptions. Perhaps Mr. Zeitgeist Pales will decree I must carry it to term. If I deliver a litter, where will I find a strong enough gunny sack, heavy rocks, a fast-flowing river to carry them out of my mind?
Oh, great. You're going to leave us there? Fine. I have to take Carolyn's whale at this point. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Glad you're here tonight. Jenny, if you will unmute.
Well, oddly enough, I'm going to read something called Putting the Zeit in the Geist.
Wow, that is cosmic.
Purely on a cost basis, ephemera outweighs gold. Dust markets manipulate the sand fleas. The cat goes crazy, killing every mote on tempo in an exuberant cloud, claws splayed in an ornery gesture. But if malady took a holiday, what would become of calamity? Would she drink whiskey on her porch and shoot at crows for sport, cataracts to shadows and pummel the cork tree? Her geist may be the gist of the jest and gesture, or the wind's lecture. Go rob a cloud bank and fill the gutter for a barrel of moonshine. Given the gift of the Geist, it's a slow raft up a long river, gets the guest a lift past eddies and idle banks. Some think the mind a frog on a slippery bog, but let the tendrilled tongues catch bugs of the bog and nod to cranes on the byways. We can whistle with the boast and paddle side saddle on a craft and coast to the breezeway come sun or slow drizzle. Sometimes note, accord, or dissonance spirals in consonance to harmonize. El Cid and Don Quixote met in a ghost town for a duel. Cid took the L and grabbed a V, a single vase with a rose on the way. Quixote brought a bottle of rosé and a Jew's harp. Droop, dude, he commanded, and the L roared to sleep in a hurry, fingering the rattling vase. Quixote took the flower and grew into a novel that's still speaking. But Sid's grown deaf and needs a leash whenever they leave the apartment. Now that's what you call a formalist, mumbles the Don, donning a nod and nodding Dawn. Reams of broken rules litter the empty streets.
Have you and Sylvia been sneaking off to meet somewhere that I didn't know about? That was amazing. Talk about synchronicity. So glad I ran into you at the fish market.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you, Jenny. So, Ruth Schemmel is a Seattle area writer and teacher whose fiction has appeared in Bellevue Literary Review, Fiction, and New Orleans Review, among other places. She has been a finalist in Glimmer Train's Fiction Open and the 5th place overall winner in the NYC Midnight Short Fiction Challenge. She will be, is newly announced, as a Jack Straw 2022 writer. She is at work on a novel. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be reading from a short story called Women's Wellness. So this is the beginning. Where's the other instructor? The boy, Renee said. It was day 1 of Women's Wellness Camp, which Renee had embarked upon in hopes of having a young man's hands on her body, even if it was for some instructive purpose, like correcting her stroke. But the firm young college student she'd envisioned teaching her to kayak, the one she'd seen, in fact, on the website and knew to be real, was not to be found on the dock. The boy, said the instructor, a woman in her 70s, face stiff with amusement, legs sun-browned, scratched up with the sorts of old wounds that served as evidence of past adventures, of life rather pointedly well-lived. We don't employ children. Anyway, you got me. The website showed a picture of a boy, Renee insisted, a young man, and the kayak instructor listed on the staff page is Ralph. Well, maybe I'm Ralph, the woman in her 70s said mysteriously. You're Ralph. She gave little jerky motions of her head and shoulders as she said it, as if to heighten the ridiculousness of anyone of Renee's age and station seeking access to the world's Ralphs. All right, grab your oar. You mean paddle? Call it anything you want, princess. Call it Ralph. Renee had suffered the usual love story. Boy meets girl, boy marries girl, boy impregnates girl twice, boy makes girl take teaching job in the suburbs, giving up her various passions, poetry writing among them, to pay her share for a house the bank would own for the next 30 years. And when girl starts heading round the bend toward 50, boy leaves girl, by now clearly well past girlhood. He leaves her for, no surprises here, a girl, 26, basically a child, breathless, whippersnappery, good at whatever nonsense tech industry job the universe offers that sort of person. Not that Renee minded much. She was sick of the boy, the man, she might as well call him, also nearing 50. She'd seen him since in spandex, a neon smear on a racing bike, zipping among cars in their old neighborhood, lifting 2 gloved fingers to her in her scratched Subaru without meeting her eye, a kiss off or a wave, who could say? He'd been tagged in hiking shots on Facebook that still appeared on her feed, holding up cardboard signs and pointing at the elevation with a quizzical, "Am I really here?" expression. Apparently, he was hitting all the high points in the country. Apparently, this had always been his dream. Apparently, he'd had many dreams: skydiving, technical climbing, sex with a woman who could be his daughter. He was living, no one could argue with this, not even Renee, his best life. Time for Renee to begin living hers. Women's wellness, pitched to her by a neighborhood housewife she recognized from years of dog park visits and youth soccer sidelines, and whose name she might as well finally learn, had seemed to Renee like a start. The kayak instructor is a disappointment, Renee reported during evening activities. She and her bunkmates had chosen body-positive paper mache, which, with the help of wine they'd concealed in their water bottles, was becoming lively. Do yourselves a favor and avoid her. I tried archery, said Evelyn, a large woman who required machinery to sleep. No complaints. You should have seen the hottie who helped me with my grip. Ralph, I think he said his name was. Ralph. Renee set down her newspaper stack. No shit. I was looking for Ralph. I need Ralph. Yes, you do. We all need Ralph. Evelyn removed her shirt and began wrapping sodden paper strips around one hefty arm. Did they all need Ralph? Did the others need Ralph the way Renee needed Ralph? Renee doubted it. These women had already all but given up. It was the second time that day Renee had seen Evelyn remove her shirt. Earlier, while Renee was driving their group carpool to the camp, Evelyn had flashed a couple of truckers on the highway from the back seat. Renee had never been a boob flasher or friends with boob flashers, wet t-shirt contest participants, even bikini wearers. She had always known better, and so had her sensible friends. Yet the reaction of the truckers, who had cheered and applauded, tapping at their horn, struck her as sweet, nearly heroic. Who were these kind men, these Galahads, making sure no middle-aged woman's random highway flashing went unappreciated, keeping the old myths alive for no reason now beyond tact? Claim your body, the young instructor said specifically to Renee, slower than the others to get started. It's yours, right? So celebrate it. Make art with it. I feel like doing a tit, Renee said. Or you could do an elbow. A foot is easy. Concern creased the instructor's brow. You should absolutely do a tit, Evelyn said. Body positive. Body positive, the rest of them sang out tipsily, Renee among them. It was a joke. Everything was a joke. Women's wellness was a joke. Look around. These were the unhealthiest women Renee had seen in her life. You had to joke, because otherwise, what? She thought, swooning into momentary depression. They had so little to show for their time spent on Earth. Did Renee kid herself she was different? For what had she lived? She, they all, had given everything to their families. They had spent themselves. Had anyone asked them to? Had they thought there was something else they were getting? Joke's on us, she thought, as she unbuttoned her shirt. You ladies are certainly going for it. The counselor tried not to look at Renee's plastered tit, the paper mache almost dry enough to peel off. That's how we do things, Renee responded. Body positive, added Jackie, a densely packed woman with a frozen shoulder and a limp. She slugged wine from her water bottle, making no effort now to hide it from the counselor. There, Renee said suddenly. All of them, including the counselor, turned to look. That's Ralph. It was indeed the same young man she'd seen featured in the camp catalog. Tall, with the broad shoulders of myth and romance novel jackets. Not that she read that sort of thing, but that was where the fantasy broke down. He was rather more puffy than muscular, as if he'd been fed a diet of exclusively processed carbs, or as if he'd been a football player once, but hadn't kept up the workouts. He had a goofy smile, ears that stuck out like her younger daughters did. But there was a brightness about him, the halo of youth and vigor, He was a man, after all, a young man, one who had made himself available this weekend to the cause of women and wellness. He would do. Ralph tested the mic. Hello, hello, he said. So I'm Ralph? Hi, Ralph! Someone who was not Renee, but might as well have been, screamed. He began reading announcements in a shy, jokey way, beginning with a list of the next morning's activities. The women, mostly obedient up to that point, arranged compliantly into their various activity groups, their knitting clusters and storytelling clatches, their acupuncture and meditation circles, began to show signs of restlessness, of edgy, raucous energy. We love you, Ralph, another woman shouted. 2 or 3 women whistled. Do we all need Ralph? Renee found herself again wondering, bemused, yet also troubled. Am I no different from these others? At the same time, she found herself swept up in the giddiness, the emerging hysteria. She emitted a small whoop and a fist bump. So, a couple more announcements, Ralph said. Cheers and whistles drowned out his next words. This is a little too much reality for him, isn't it? Jackie said. He has no idea what he's in for. Reality, Renee thought. No idea of what? The extent to which women let themselves go? Become hooting, cawing barn animals for whom sexuality is an absurd performance? As if this descent into invisibility, into not mattering at all, were somehow preordained, no help or hope for it. This was just how it was. Poor boy is frightened of us, Evelyn was saying. Good Lord, he will be devoured. He did look frightened, a smile glued to his lips, hands all but useless at his sides. Renee could think of a few things he could do with those hands. 20 minutes with Ralph in a boathouse. That's all she needed. That's all she needed in the world. What's he teaching tomorrow? She demanded of the body positive paper mache instructor, her plastered tit pointing at the woman like a pistol. Find out. The next morning, she had been assured she would find Ralph at archery. Instead, she found the 70-something-year-old woman, the same one from the day before. Sunlight caught her chin whiskers. Well, look who it is, the woman said. We must stop meeting like this. She laughed at Renee's expression. Here, grab yourself a bow and some arrows. I thought you were the kayak expert. The kayak expert. She gave Renee a penetrating look, an unpleasant, I see you smile. We all do everything here, jacks of all trades. I thought you were here to broaden your horizons. I am, Renee said, suddenly confused. That's why I'm here at archery, learning to arch. It was meant as a joke, wordplay. She was a poet, right? Sort of. To arch, the woman said, raising her eyebrows. I don't think I want to see that. Well, what the heck was that, Renee thought. So, she said, aiming to cover her horror at the minefield of accidental sexual banter she may or may not have stumbled into with technical questions. This is called a what exactly? A bow? Yes, but I thought there were different kinds. Oh, sure, there are. I see you really know your stuff. We call this kind plastic. She pronounced it like a foreign word. Yes, but the style. How about let's talk and get those arrows flying, Katniss? Archery wasn't as great as you described, Renee told Evelyn at lunch. She felt bruised after her morning session with the 70-year-old. Every interaction with the woman abraded. Why, though? It was as if the woman knew her thoughts, her fantasies even, and had deliberately thrust herself in fate's path. She was bruised physically, too. The skin along her forearm red and swollen where the string had repeatedly slapped it with each arrow's release. She blew on it softly. That's not supposed to happen. Didn't the instructor show you how to do it? My instructor put his arms around me, Evelyn confessed, giggling. Mine didn't, Renee said. Thank God. Though I wouldn't mind a tussle with yours. Honestly, all I wanted from this experience is a man's hands on me. It was a mistake to admit this. Wait, what? You came to Women's Wellness to hook up? And you're not gay? Well, of course, it sounds insane when you put it like that, Renee said. You should visit my mind. It all makes sense there. There was that cute picture of Ralph doing kayak lessons on the website. Was there? Evelyn made a helpless gesture. I'm just in it for a break from home. No cooking, cleaning up after people, driving to practices. Fresh air's not bad. But if you want a man's hands on you, or at least near you, you should head back to the kayak station after lunch. The whole thing was foolish, Renee thought, as she headed to the docks. Unless maybe it wasn't. She could get lucky and see him. She could get lucky, period. She believed in luck the same way she believed in lust, that edge of insatiability that made her feel vital and alive, never mind her aging face, the knee just then giving her pain. Never mind the way as she crested the hill and approached the waterfront, lit to sparkles by the sun just beginning its descent. She limped. And that's where I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that you are a terrific reader. You said you didn't have that much experience, but you are a really good reader.
Oh, thank you so much.
The characters we could hear each of their voices. You're a natural. And so in the chat, which you'll see, everybody is definitely, we're laughing in our little Zoom boxes. So glad that I finally got to hear your writing after too many years. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Michael, I'm going to have you unmute and do our open mic. Thank you again, Ruth.
Hey, hello everyone, and thank you to the readers who have read already. I have two poems. The first is titled Mange tout, which is a French word. Anybody know what that means?
Say it again.
Mange tout.
Well, eat together?
Eat everything, basically.
Ah, mange tout.
Mange tout. Pardon my French. If cars were edible, we'd know what to do when the cost of repairing them exceeded their value as transportation. We'd slice off a strip of Goodyear tire, sprinkle it with synthetic oil drippings, scraped off the manifold, and chow on down. For a burrito-like hors d'oeuvre, we could wrap windshield shards in seat leather, then dish up a melange of Tabascoed taillights, shock absorbers, and camshafts on shiny hubcaps. Dice up the floor mats, mud flaps, to serve with headrest hollandaise and turbocharger chutney. Nibble on a seatbelt or turn signal. Make a cocktail of melted steering wheel and miscellaneous engine parts. If the axles were too filling all at once, we could shave them down into filings to swallow with the washer fluid. Same with the aluminum frame, mixed with gasoline or diesel, whipped to a froth with a timing belt or antenna. Airbag powder would flavor the alternator and carburetor, complementing s'mores made of a sun visor and a license plate. Gear knob and speedometer would be truffle-like delicacies, but one could take only the tiniest morsels, even if buttered, of the battery radiator and brake pads, yet savor the distinctive mustard taste of the muffler, depending on its aging by rust. Imagine eating the radio, now silent, or that thing that used to be called the cigarette lighter. downing the windshield wipers with cracked rubber blades and chunks of pickled accelerator pedal. We might work our way from front bumper to exhaust pipe, or roof rack to chassis, have friends over for transmission parties as we pay our last respects to our dearly departing automobile, splitting the differential like a wishbone to see who scores the catalytic converter. For a dashboard dessert, how about a bite of rear view mirror or cruise control, topping that off with pistons on a dipstick, fender leftovers like sushi on a fan belt, then sharing spark plugs and lug nuts with wasabi and post-party goodie bags. Italian sports cars might be especially delectable, but we'd be wise to be wary of Eastern European clunkers. We might wonder if a limousine is more tangy than an SUV or a jalopy more tart than a truck. But when its engine will no longer turn, must relish our own car, convertible, Jeep, or sedan, devour it with gratitude and salsa. In the end, we might congratulate ourselves for exceeding even Michel Lotito, better known as Monsieur Mange-Tout, Mr. Eat All, who ate bicycles, shopping carts, chandeliers, televisions, a pair of skis, a computer, a coffin, a waterbed, and even an entire Cessna, but never ate a car. And do I have time for a shorter one?
Sure.
Okay. This is called That Preppy Feeling. And it's an unusual one for me in that it rhymes. I'm prepping for colonoscopy. It's hardly a thing to avoid. It may be unpleasant and leave some debris, but my life will not be destroyed. I'm prepping for colonoscopy. It's nothing at all to dread. The potion I'm drinking tastes lemony and won't leave me writhing or dead. I'm prepping for colonoscopy, which might make me feel a bit sore. It keeps me dancing happily to the bathroom to do my chore. I'm prepping for colonoscopy, for I know it's a healthy trend. So I'm doing my prep so dutifully because I know I'll feel good in the end. I'm prepping for colonoscopy. I really don't mind one bit. I'm finding out quickly I don't need to pee, but I definitely need to.
Okay. Well, that's a break from the zeitgeist. Thank you. And don't you have vision with your backdrop of blue? Thank you.
Is it okay to say something?
Sure.
That was just, those were great. I want to read a whole book full of them. I really needed them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is a new take. I did write a column about a colonoscopy, which I called Columoscopy, but never a poem. So bravo. Okay, now I know a tough act to follow, as they so often say. Esther is the founder of this series back in January 1990, and she is going to read a new piece called Becoming 80. She is a nonfiction writer and poet with a PhD in history from the University of Washington. She is the author of Listening to Mozart, Poems of Alzheimer's, Dear Alzheimer's, A Caregiver's Diary, and The Homeless One, A Poem in Many Voices. She is a longtime teacher and a 2010 Jack Straw writer. That doesn't do her justice. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you. I'm going to start by reading about my new puppy, Dakota. Becoming 80, Part 1, Dakota. My German Shepherd, Smokey Bro, died on August 14th, and I went 4 months without a dog, the longest time I can remember being without one. And if you don't think an 80-year-old woman could pine with loneliness for one of those four-legged creatures, you're mistaken. Then my daughter, representing all three of my children, came in the house with a 2.5-year-old tri-colored aristocratic pup, 23 pounds of energy with hair growing out of her toes. I never had such a small dog. She looks like a porcelain doll. I'm almost afraid to touch her. She's so delicate. I could put her on a shelf and nobody would know she's real until she awakens and runs, a black rust and white ball of fur. She curls up under my arm, at the bottom of my feet, or in my lap without asking. She sleeps on top of my pillow as if it were her very own security blanket. She knows very well that she owns me. I couldn't pick up my full-grown German Shepherd, Smoky Bro, and put him in my lap. So the habits of this little girl called Dakota are new to me. I turned 80 on December 3rd of last year. The whole year before that, the thought of becoming 80 plagued me. I don't know why. My mother lived till 96, Aunt Mamie lived till 99, Aunt Miriam 102. In other words, longevity on my side of the family was taken for granted. So why did I waste time worrying about what it meant to be 80, especially with the gift of Dakota right around the corner? She and I will certainly grow older together, and the word 80 will have lost all its meaning. More of becoming 80. I have a new friend. His name is Peter. He comes to my house every day at 3:15. I leave the door open for him. We sit and talk until he gets up to leave when light begins to fail. He's afraid of the dark, even though he loves it. He's fallen and doesn't want to take the chance of falling again. Why is it important that I have a new friend? I've had new friends before, friends who've sat with me through the years, friends I've talked with over breakfast and dogs. Lynn, for instance, who brings her own coffee and a cup for me too, plus sticky buns. Judy visits me in late afternoon. I've known her for years. I don't know how many. Perhaps I know her from shul, synagogue, or maybe I know her from Abe. Did Judy know Abe before I knew Abe? I don't know, but she's still in love with him. Even after all these years, after his death in 2010, she's still in love with him. I was with Abe when he died, but I don't remember him dead. I only remember him alive. He was a sweet man, but he could lose his temper too. I saw him lose his temper a few times. His temper led me to want a divorce, but I never got one. We just separated for a while. Separations didn't change anything. They just helped us to settle down, to know each other better. I saw the poet Sylvia Pollack walking in the street today. She wasn't actually in the street, which is just an expression. I saw her in the street, means she was walking in the neighborhood. She looked like she was actually going for a walk, but she didn't have a destination. I saw Jacob Lawrence walking in the street once too. He lived in my neighborhood. His hands were in his pockets with his head tilted, but just a little bit forward. Everything I've said up to now is true. I could put it in my autobiography. Actually, this is my autobiography in verse. I'll turn 80 in 2 weeks, December 3rd, 1941. Special date for me. Perhaps Peter will bring me a cupcake. Driving home from Mother's house. As I drive through the bower of old oak trees, scanning 68th and 20th Avenues Northeast, I am scared by the moon. It is so low in the sky this night, I think it will smack me in the face. I try to turn the wipers on, but strands of hair, white as paste, cover the window like thick rain. A woman's mouth stretches open in a silent scream. Bent fingers claw until they reach my chest. Some nights I lose my way home. This is called Mother Wears a Shroud of Pure Linen. When she died, a team of women bathed her, head to toe, every inch of loose skin, even hard to get to underneath of folds and creases. These women of the Heber Kadisha washed her 96-year-old still warm self, there cleansing a protective shield. Mother, buried in Seattle's Herzl near the Mead Cemetery, you are ready for anything now. 8 years old, cupcakes with sprinkles on top. My birthday party. Herbie Thalberger's here, and I'm happy. His parents are communists too. Can somebody read an open mic while I let her out, and then I'll be back for one more poem? Peggy?
So Robert Hoffman, perhaps if you could end mic, and then read an open mic.
Yeah, I can, I have two, but I can read one. What's Wrong with Bob? It's a duplex, a form we were messing around with another group of mine. We have a lot of fun with this. So, what's wrong with Bob? A duplex. Our days are filled with attempts at meaning. You wake up at 2 with a case of FOMO. Your fears guide you to examine your phone, the pending check or solitaire, or the latest news. The latest news is flat, and down the rabbit hole you fall with the creator of rock and roll heaven, an artist paying a plastic price for fame. In tight jeans, Elvis thanks you very much. In loose jeans, you fix breakfast for the family as fresh face Heather begs for a picnic. But it's early and the park is wet this time. So you take the time to go shopping. She pushes the mini shopping cart for eggs, and you buy the last 2 Betty White magazines. Driving home, you remember you didn't bag the mags and left them behind, and you pick up Lisa 30 just in time to return home to cook lunch, a BLT or an LOB because you don't like tomatoes. The lettuce, onion, bacon is delicious, but you're out of ice. And you saunter to the liquor mart and buy extra liquor because now it's 2 p.m. and wonder why you haven't written a word of meaning all day long. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll have to come back and do more readings for us another time.
Absolutely would love to.
So while we wait for Esther, I often forget to do this part. I'm going to say that I will be welcoming Anne Hersey, Judith von Prague, and Gigi Silverman in February. And then I believe Anna Kim or Anna Dolan is here in March, and she's here with us as well this evening. So wonderful. Well, does anybody else want to do, it's a great open mic, or is Esther back?
Mary Ellen said she wanted to read one.
Oh,
Well, should we go to Mary Ellen and then back to Esther?
sure.
Oh, okay. And you can believe the poems that Esther said, but mine are more like Michael Dylan Welch's. I don't think you want to believe it. This was published in Lothlorien. It's a surreal poem. Okay. And it's for my grandchildren. Children get their just desserts. The trick to making fluffy children is using quality whipping cream with higher butterfat content. Wherever said children are lollygagging during dinner preparations, place them in appropriate containers. Use manual beaters. No need for children to be apprehensive. They will love the attention and basking in foam. Younger children produce better results due to higher fat content. For that reason, teenagers are not ideal. Stainless steel beaters work well. Whip those children in the tub, on the playground, in school, out of school, even on their way to the dentist. Whip, whip, whip. Children with naturally curly hair foam up faster than those with long, straight hair. Parents may wish to keep their children at their peak of freshness in a Tupperware bowl in the fridge. It is recommended that you do not seal the bowl, as fluffy children need to breathe. Serve the just whipped children atop homemade pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving dinner. This dessert serves two purposes: creamy and sweet, especially if 2 tablespoons sugar and a ½ teaspoon vanilla extract are added toward the end of whipping. Do not energetically re-whip froth after removing fluffy children from the fridge. Folding stiff white peaks gently with a spoon will gather up any liquid that has separated. Besides taste, an additional benefit to this holiday delight is that when children rest in stiff peaks atop pumpkin pies, they give their parents 10 minutes to eat in peace. Although not recommended, family dogs or cats will be eager to lick spoons, bowls, and beaters. It's quite all right. Many fluffy children prefer this to taking a bath before bed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And thank you, Katie, for keeping me on track too. Esther, we're back to you, and then we'll hear from Mark Hennon.
Okay, this is Father's letter. My father is writing me from the grave. He says he's sorry he wasn't more whole as a human being. Even from up there, he falls into bed. For days, stares at the ceiling as if it holds an answer. None appears. He lies there, unhappy in his knot. When he returns, he laughs as if the past few days belonged to someone else's life. Daddy closes his letter from the grave with a touch that moves me to the page. And for both of us, he's glad I'm here. The old woman worked, went to meetings, rode buses, shopped, carried bundles home. At demonstrations, she held peace signs high, shouted as if she owned the keys to her life. No one thought her body frail, least of all me. She was supposed to last forever, or walk erect until the end. That's a mother. Now she's in a nursing home, screaming, her old life shadowing the bed. Throngs of people marching, wars raging, children waiting. At the hospital, I locked myself inside the space of home, just as I did the bathroom when I was 3. Mother and father yell and beg and pound for me to come out, but I am steadfast. I watch the pee run over my thighs and into the space behind my knees and down the backs of my legs until the tops of my socks are sopping wet and my feet are sloshy in my shoes. My brother and sister demand news of our mother's condition as my pen scribbles sounds of ink along the edges of my paper until words come together on the page. I look from my shoes to the quivering door as firemen meander through the mind of dream and doctors continue on even after the lock is broken. Guarding mother. I will guard her against all harm. I will watch her until my eyes run dry. I will swab her mouth with a saliva stick. I will hold her hands until warmth comes. I will watch her breathing until it stops. Even then, I will watch. Mouth. That's all I see of her now. The wide open hole that never closes. A tunnel of darkness too dry to enter. No one wants to anymore anyway, except me. I want to climb in, tongue the periphery, fill the hollow, moisten her until she glistens again. Read one more. Mother wears a shroud of pure linen. When she died, a team of women bathed her. head to toe, every inch of loose skin, even hard to get to underneath of folds and creases. These women of the Heber Kadisha washed her 96-year-old self, still washed her 96-year-old still warm self, their cleansing a protective shield. Mother, buried in Seattle's Herzl near Tamid Cemetery, you are ready for anything now. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. What a lovely opportunity to set off the year. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Hannon. This is condensed from my Quo is Death nonfiction series. It's called Blame Inflation on Billionaires. Today's inflation is by billionaires who price gouge Americans on gasoline, meat, electricity, and heat. U.S. fossil fuels are dominated by ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips. Their billionaire owners raised prices over 50% higher than last year. Gasoline up 58%, diesel fuel 53%, residential heating oil 53%, methane, aka natural gas, stuff powering furnaces, hot water heaters, and kitchen stoves, up 58%. Fossil fuel billionaires raised consumer prices for electricity and every other consumer purchase that is shipped by ocean, by train, by truck, and delivery services like Instacart. Big Fossil raised all those costs for all other businesses too, which led them to raise their prices, perhaps adding gouging of their own. Subhead, pandemic profits peak. U.S. food is monopolized by 3 billionaire corporations, Cargill, Tyson, and Purdue. During COVID, they raised prices about 20%. In just 1 year, pork is up about 17% and steak 25%. Cargill is twice as big as Tyson and Purdue combined. Controlled by the 14 billionaire Cargills, quote, the family with the most billionaires in the entire world, unquote, their corporation raked record profits of about $5 billion for its last fiscal year, up from $3 billion the year before. That's a 66% increase in profits during COVID for the same steak and bacon. Cargill tried to hide its price gouging, but Bloomberg News found out. Quote, what's good for Cargill, Bloomberg stated, is a headache for households, which face the highest food inflation in a decade. Subhead, from worst to despicable. Each greedy billionaire takes food and heat from hundreds of thousands of homes with limited means, struggling students, young families, the handicapped, disabled veterans, seniors on Social Security, everyone working for slim wages, and children. At the same time, billionaires use their fat prices to pay politicians for laws to take the right to vote away from millions of Americans so they can't fight back with a so-called, quote, Supreme Court, unquote, that does what the billionaires desire. By boosting inflation, billionaires inflate their power. And for the Americans the billionaires rip off, the status quo for their partners and their children is a lesser life, a shorter life, and a sooner death. The status quo is death. Quo is death. Thank you.
Thank you. Returning to like the big ending. So thank you all for being here tonight with reading number 386. If you let me know you want to read, remember it's my email, my first and last name. And I look forward to a wonderful year, perhaps not all of it online.